All right, we're live. Welcome,
Ooh.
everyone, to Table Talk, where we talk all things tabletop. I'm your host, the Bad Luck Gamer, and we're here with my co-host, the Glue Boy.
Hello, that's me.
Yeah, I'm getting better at the intro every time, just a little.
Yeah, it feels like an
better.
intro. I
is a good intro.
still think every time you're gonna say where we talk all things table. I don't know why. I don't know. It's just my gut feels like he's gonna stop right there. He's not gonna say tabletop. He's gonna say table. I'm not saying it makes logical sense.
Yeah. Also, welcome, Raging Wyvern. We got some fun stuff to talk about today, about some new books announced by Paizo, and some other interesting concepts. One in particular I'm actually very excited to talk about it. So, but first, how you doing? How you doing, Alex?
Pretty interesting. I've for the first time in a while, I'm back on my usual schedule. I mean, except for the fact that I have to preload for a trip I'm going to be taking in a few weeks. So I have to get used to my old filming and like writing schedule. I'm back in the swing of things. I got a new video out on the white scars. It's not doing like, it's not doing numbers because white scars aren't very popular.
White scars would do.
Yeah. The thing I'll say though, because it's fitting. It's very fitting for that lore.
It is.
But it's a part that I kind of is still like, even when I make a video that doesn't do as well, it still doesn't hit because despite that, I still get really good engagement. I got a lot of people that like commenting and like talking about the stuff, and it's always fun to see. I like going through those comments because I've yet to find any major shitters, except for the one that I still think is very funny that got upset that I made a very like pretty basic joke about the Great British Museum. Right. It's not calling me like pandering to the woke crowd when I had like 300 subs.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was just funny.
Yeah, I mean, people are always gonna come on and just shit on you for no reason.
Oh yeah.
And it's nothing that you can help. It's nothing you should even worry about.
No.
Like literally, I did my first ever ad in or my first ever sponsor in a video, and so I was just like, wasting 5 minutes on an ad read. This is not what I came here to watch.
And it's
skip. Like, dude, do you not understand, one, how videos work, and two, that YouTubers are trying to make money? And
no, it's it's like a television program, Cam. We can't skip forward. It's happening live. You're making it live in front of us.
It was a lukewarm take on the British Museum stealing stuff. That was it.
Yeah, literally, I made a joke that Trays in the Infinite in 40K has a museum full of stolen shit, and the joke was like, you might get it mistaken for another British museum full of stolen artifacts, and I just showed the Google page for the Great British Museum, because they did, and that's what they have done. Like, it's a joke, but it's also like, I mean, yeah, it's just a fact, and it's a very obvious joke. And then just someone's like, you ruined it with the anti-woke, anti-British thing. It's like, dog. My man.
Also, fuck the British.
Also,
or Americans.
What do they even do? LOL, tea and crumpets. Tuesday. What's even going on over
Tuesday.
there? What's even happening over there?
What is happening over there? There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the UK's politics.
I can imagine. I do not follow it. I just like that their parliament yells at each other and grunts in agreement. They had like, the fancy words for like, I agree and I disagree, and it's over time gotten changed to just two forms of grunting.
Yeah.
It's really funny. Watching their parliament is so funny because of that.
It's so great. And yeah, you're gonna suck. That's true. There's just people out there who live to make people miserable.
Yeah. I'm happy that I've yet to come across the major Warhammer like shitheads, because there are people. There's like already been a person or two that's come in that's upset that I'm talking positively about new lore, because there is like the group of 40k fans that are like, we can never progress past the Fall Acadia. Everything past then is dog shit. It's like, well, no. Some of it's really good. Some of it might just be different. But it's also, I remember the time for like fucking, there's like 10 years where people were like, oh, come on, Games Workshop, progress the timeline. And then once they progress the timeline, they're like, no, don't progress the timeline. It's stupid.
It's proof that in all things, people want and like different things.
Yeah.
Surprising, right? It's like all those people who play Pathfinder 1 who are just like, Pathfinder 2 is the worst game ever, and they just dumbed everything down.
Yeah.
And it's like, sure, whatever you say, champ. I don't blame people for enjoying Pathfinder First Edition, nor do I blame people for playing D&D 5e, as my last video may have said contrary to. Well, actually, to be fair, I did say in that video, if you like D&D, play D&D.
You did.
I just think Pathfinder is a superior game.
Yeah, that's true.
It's true.
It's true.
Like, almost categorically, factually true.
Yeah. You can like what you like. Just like, you can like the Tau, but you might be wrong about it. But you can like them.
I actually do kind of like Tau, though. I think, legitimately, I like how a lot of their army is set up. I think it's just the balancing and the lore behind Tau, I think, is also just what plays it down really bad. But I like the idea of a full, like, mech suit style army.
I guess it's also just general. I'm not a fan of that type of mech, is what it is. I don't like the Tau for aesthetic reasons more than anything, because I will say, Farsight's base as fuck. He is very cool, but then like everything else is kind of lame. I can't say the same about the Eldar, because I don't like them for lore reasons rather than aesthetic reasons. Yeah. That one I'll judge people more heavily on.
Heck, man, when I made my Warlock video recently, that video blew up.
It did really well.
I learned that literally no one can agree on what actually makes a Warlock a Warlock.
It's just like a vibe,
It really is. I think that's... But to be fair, that's like what I was going on, the vibes I got from Warlock.
It's just your vibes didn't match the other vibes.
Other people's vibes, it's crazy.
The moment I saw the notification, I'm like, oh, this is gonna do numbers, and then I put it my phone down, checked later, it had already like over 1,000 views.
Yeah,
I was like, yeah.
I'm so stoked that my Folklorist video has done really, really well.
Yeah, it carried the momentum a bit.
Folklorist is actually a super solid archetype. If you all have not seen it yet, check it out. It's a really good one. I
didn't, because it says perfect support, and you know me.
It's really good though.
I can imagine it's good, but it's a support build.
Tasteless. I live for support builds.
I can't imagine that world. That sounds very, very sad. Because you could support, or you could like carry a big weapon and do the damage.
Your 3 different vibes didn't fit other people's vibes. Yeah, surprising.
To
be fair, a lot of them are like, but what if all I do is use Eldritch Blast? Where's my Eldritch Blast class? And unfortunately, Kineticist isn't out yet, so they're just gonna have to wait for that part of the video, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, true. Cause like we talked about this like when we were just chatting about the video, but like it is weird that because I do fully agree. Like I think Eldritch Blast is a really fun cantrip. I think it's a really cool tool that is given to Warlock, but like I don't know if it's that necessary. You could just sub in a different cantrip, probably a better cantrip or spell that you could use.
Or legitimately give like several unique cantrips that also can be augmented with invocations rather than all in one.
Because like I'll say like I do, because I played a Bardlock like primarily, and having like the invocation to buff my Eldritch Blast to do a bit more damage was a really handy tool. It just meant I had on deck a always really good cantrip damage wise with Spell Sniper. It was just handy to have, and I loved having it. But also, I had other shit.
Yeah.
I had, like, mage armor that I could always have active, which is, like, another really good invocation.
Yeah, Electric Arc. Electric Arc is the Eldritch Blast of Pathfinder.
It's a really good cantrip.
Almost everyone can get their hands on it.
Yeah.
Divine can't, which, sucks to be Divine.
I would have had it on my Sorcerer, but he was a Divine caster.
I personally don't like Electric Arc just because for some reason, it's the only cantrip that really breaks the convention of balance that Pathfinder 2e has. But I also don't think it's ruining the game that it's there. So
I don't know. If it's like one spell that does it, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
If it was multiple, yeah.
I have a Magus. He has Electric Arc. I've used it once. And I usually Spell Strike with Produce Flame.
Produce Flame is really good, so.
It's really good.
It's a good one. It also has a really fun, a critical hit effect.
Yeah, you crit hit, and enemies light a flame and take a bunch of persistent fire damage.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. It was my go-to on my Sorcerer. It's also just a dope aesthetically spell. Like, who doesn't want to just produce the flame, the mini fireball in your hand and throw it at somebody? Really cool, just power.
Yeah, well, Electric Arc is also not an attack cantrip, so that's why there's different purposes. For Magus, it's unless you have the expanded Spell Strike or whatever it's called. I've been playing Magus for a year and I still don't remember. I didn't take it because it felt like a mandatory feat, and I like breaking convention with my characters. So, also, I was trying to do a very expansive Spell Strike. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I was also trying to go for a very different type of Magus style rather than Spell Strike, Spell Strike, Spell Strike. It was more buff up, use Mantle Spell, and then a bunch of melee strikes.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like the YouTube chat's updating strangely. So we do got a question that you might be able to answer.
What's that?
Wanting to make a goblin trying to make the biggest boom out of junk. Undecided if I should go gunslinger with inventor archetype or vice versa. Thoughts?
Thoughts? Pick up the firework technician archetype dedication.
Oh, there it is on the stream. Yes, agreed.
It's whatever your main class is, you can make it work. Inventor can definitely have, I played an Inventor dwarf with an exploding dwarven war axe he called the Skag Axe, and then it could turn into a gun axe, and the explosive on hit, the ability to make your invention explode can really fit that aesthetic. Gun, you can do gun too. If your boom is gun boom, then I don't see anything wrong with that. But I always recommend that you use the firework technician, because then you can have utility boom on top of your boom, and also they can just throw fireballs out willy-nilly. It's really cool.
Yeah, there's the one really good utility boom that fucks over flying enemies.
Also love the name. Afro Samurai is the shit.
I need to actually watch Afro Samurai.
It's really good.
I've seen the first episode and really liked it.
Actually, you know what? This is a good point. Before we get on to what was announced, we got some people kind of coming in and out. We'll wait a little bit longer for that. But I did want to talk about a very interesting game concept that I've discovered recently. It's damage. Why do you think everyone prefers building damage over all else and prioritizes damage over everything?
Because it's fun.
Is it?
For me, it is.
But why? What makes it fun?
I hit the guy and he's gone.
I hit the guy, he's gone, yeah. Well, see, that's actually very close to the actual reason. And also Dead Phoenix, I agree as well. The reason why people like damage, prefer damage, is because damage is the only metric that progresses you to the end of a fight. Like, if you don't do damage, the fight will never end. So damage is the only one that really progresses the fight. And also, afternoon, Keenan. And it's so highly valued because so many games are so easy that you don't need to have anything else to do well in the game. If you can do enough damage to kill the enemy before they can hurt you too bad, then there's no reason not to use damage. Because anything else is just making the fight take longer and is making the fight slower, and you don't need it to win the game more often than not. And this is like in everything. In Wild Hearts, a lot of the talismans that you take early on are just damage talismans. Because if you know how to beat the monster and you can do it with pure skill, then why not just take stuff that makes that easier, makes that happen faster for you? Damage is the most obviously useful thing to most people, to the most positive streamer of all times. Thank you, Bruno. But yeah, well, and that's the thing, right? Is it's also that concept of damage is the most useful. Why do people think that? And again, it's because damage is all you need to win a lot of combat situations. Honestly, in most tabletop games up until this point, have you ever needed to worry about anything other than damage in a fight besides maybe healing?
I mean, it's mainly like I need the damage to kill a thing, and then like, oh, I hope I don't die here. Healer, a cure wounds be nice.
I've been playing Octopath Traveler 2 recently, and this is kind of what made me aware of why damage is so preferential in so many games. In Octopath Traveler 2, it's a more strategic style turn-based game, and the game's mechanics lend itself to amping yourself up. You can use multiple boost charges to essentially boost up one of your attacks to make it do extra damage, or you can boost up one of your support spells to make it last more rounds. And in Octopath Traveler, the optimal way to play is to set your team up by doing support abilities, surviving until eventually you have your one character do a huge massive hit that destroys the enemies like all in one go. If you just try to push damage really early, you don't get that big satisfaction like mega hit, and the fights are actually harder or sometimes impossible if you're not playing around the like support and utility abilities and all that kind of stuff. You can't just brute force your way through the game. And some people might look at that and be like, oh, thinking, why would I think in a game? I don't want to think, I just want to do damage. That's fair. But for other people, especially for me in Octopath, it's super rewarding to do like a huge setup to get your abilities to come together just right and to completely dominate a fight by good use of your abilities and such. And so why damage is the key metric for most games is you don't need to do that. It's not necessary to win. All you have to do is do enough damage and heal enough to not die, and you can get through the encounter with no problem. True. Because there's no support abilities that you can combine together to do more damage output than just using those turns to do damage instead.
Yeah, SMT is kind of like that. Like, not just Persona stuff. Persona's a bit more simple than it. But, like, mainline Shin Megami Tensei games, like, the battle system is very, like, it gives you the system. It says, we prioritize, like, giving you an extra turn. Like, you do a weakness, you get an extra turn. And then the game is very open of, like, all right, you have the rule, now break it.
Yeah.
Absolutely make the game regret giving you this tool.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what like makes those games so brutal, because you have to master it. which is why every like main SMT game has the curb stomp boss. If you played 3, you're thinking of Matador right now, because fuck Matador.
And so, like that's and now I understand why everyone likes damage, and it makes a lot of sense. To me, it's not fun to just focus on only damage stuff, especially because when you get like a good damage rotation that just is your optimal damage, then you just end up doing the same things over and over and over again, and less exciting. And to be fair, when you're playing certain games, there's certain buff rotations that you go through that also just do the same thing, so they can be equally as tedious, but at least they have a few more steps to do than like normal just brute forcing games. We got a lot of comments here. 1 second. Let's see. Yo, Lentho, what's up? If you know the game, you know when buffs and debuffs are more important than just doing damage, but usually they just make damage better, with the exception of save or die spells, of course. And I mean, to be fair, to have buffs increase damage is not a bad way to add utility to your game. It's just like in Pathfinder, there's so few opportunities for you to buff an ally that isn't considered just a straight DPR drop for the entire team. Because yes, Bard is a really good example of, they can buff the whole team, give them a +1 to hit or whatever, increases accuracy, really good, and they can still cast a spell or do whatever, it's really good. Casting haste, when you're like a Magus, for instance, unless you're right up in an enemy's face, it's you cast haste, you move up, and then you do a normal strike. You lost a bunch of damage for the turn to give everyone else a strike or stride, which might not even give them benefit because their rotations normally allow for them to optimize damage anyway. And because of how map works, that extra action is only good for striding more often than not, and not actually the bonus strike. So there's all kinds of ways where some buffs just kind of fall flat. Also want to clarify for use of junk bomb on a gunslinger alchemist shot feat. What is the persistent damage you inflict on the gunslinger's alchemic shots? Sure, I can look that up for you real quick.
I'm also thinking through this because, as a damage enthusiast, specifically, I'm thinking of our Lancer like game that we were playing, and it's like, yeah, doing just attack stuff's kind of boring, but the fucking rush of me playing my Rayleigh. All I do as the Rayleigh is shoot. But oh fucking boy, is it a great time.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you like doing damage, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with liking doing damage.
Yeah.
It's more of people justify certain builds or certain things purely on damage as an aspect. Afro, the alchemical shot does a D6 persistent damage based on the type of bomb that you use. So it's whatever type of bomb you use, whether it's like a alchemist fire or whatever, does that type, so fire in that case, plus, and it's a D6 persistent damage every round. Technically, you can use alchemical shot every round and stack persistent damages as long as they're different damage types, which can be really, really good. Can you do a press turn system in a TTRPG? Yes. I think it would change the convention of how people see TTRPGs, but it's the same thing of like playing different video games, It would just be a different kind of system, and it would have more actions that lend to like giving layups for your damage dealers or whatever, which I think it's still super possible.
That could be pretty cool.
As a DM, the party I have now seem to prefer diplomacy in almost every situation, but there are exceptions to past parties. It's funny because there's situations as well where the game or the DM can unintentionally make doing damage less effective if it comes to getting around encounters. It's like when a DM lets a party have too many like stealth items or invisibility potions, and the players circumnavigate a lot of the combats, which tells you that your players are more concerned about getting through encounters than it is the act of actually participating in encounters. So whatever gets them through the encounter faster is the preferred method, as it were. There could be other combat winning methods. Yeah, there could be other winning methods. It's a little harder, especially because most games are oriented around combat. But there are some games that do this. I think Undertale did really well because you could actually, instead of fighting the monster, you could give them gifts or compliment them or something.
And the whole pacifism part of it.
Yeah, pacifism run, which is interesting and I think is really good. It's just harder to do in like the standard fantasy setting, you know, unless the game is super geared towards that. Only problem with that in SMT/Persona is that hard fights just remove the mechanic, basically making the boss weak to nothing, and it's unfun. Yeah,
I'll say Persona's more guilty of that at the very least. SMT is a bit better with its like weakness system still being exploitable. There are exceptions though. That is true. They sometimes just get rid of the mechanic and be like, no, do the raw damage.
Yeah. And then Lancer, you can also do heat. True. And you can do heat through hacking and stuff, or some weapons do heat, and you can work with your teammates to focus heat on enemies through a variety of methods, which is really good. So Junk Bomb would be persistent slash damage rather than bleed it normally inflicts. Where is this Junk Bomb? Are you telling, is it a goblin ability? I mean, if it counts as an alchemical bomb and it does slashing damage, then yes, I would have to assume that it would do persistent slashing damage. You can consider that as being like, it has barbed wire in it that wraps around the enemy that's consistently cutting into them.
That'd be fun. I mean, it's fun to mention heat because it's specifically like, I have a build for like a hacker build. It's still a damage dealing build though. It's my my Pegasus, like, I'm going to melt you from inside your mech build, and it's really fun.
Yeah, it's just alternative ways of winning the game, you know? And it's just one of those things where you can't discount certain methods of play because there are other equally valid methods of getting to a win state, you know, more or less. So, actually, I guess that would be like Shadowrun where you get multiple turns per round. Yeah. What do you think about Potentia? Oh, potency runes. No worries. Potency runes for casters, I think are a bad idea, and they break the balance metric of the game as it's currently set. Casters, with a variety of some spells, could just make some enemies like gravity well, like it forces an enemy to fly up to the ceiling or whatever. And they won't be able to do anything. They just hang there in midair unless they have flight in some case, and they just are instant over. So it's like an instant win ability. You gotta be really careful with that. So potency for adding to like spell DCs is very hard. If it's spell attack specifically, I have less of a problem with because it's just as the same as everything else. Junk Bomb comes from Pathfinder's Special Fumbus comic. This volatile looking bomb is called together with Jagged Metal, blah, 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 blah. A Junk Bomb deals the listed slashing damage, persistent bleed, and piercing splash damage. Many types grant a bonus to attack rolls. I see. So if you would use it that way for alchemical shot, as long as it's counted as an alchemical bomb, specifically, it loses a lot of the other stuff of the bomb. The strike from your firearm does the same type of the bomb, and it does an additional d6. So it wouldn't do d6 slashing and bleeding. It would only do the slashing in this case. Get a Shadow Signet Ring for your caster. That's your attack bonus. I like the Shadow Signet Ring. It's really good.
What does that one do?
Let me look it up exactly. It's a ring that you invest, and as a meta magic, a free action meta magic, if your next spell casts a spell requires a spell attack roll against armor class, choose force DC or reflex DC, you may make your spell attack roll against the defense instead of AC. If the spell has multiple targets, the choice of DC applies to all of them. So, if it's a spell that allows you to attack, you can choose to either go against their forward DC or reflex DC instead, which tends to be lower than most enemies' AC. In some cases. Some enemies have really high saves. But alright, we're 30 minutes in. Let's go ahead and talk about the new books that have been announced for Paizo. Shall we? So, Paizo, for the first time, is actually releasing world guide maps and information about Tianxia, or Qianxia, which is the Eastern style continent in the world. In fact, you can see behind me the world map. That's just like one continent of like 3, or it's technically it's 2 of a total of 4 continents or whatever. And all Pathfinder First Edition pretty much only had that map. I think they expanded to a couple other areas, but not like whole continents. So they are releasing a Xianxia continent. It's a very interesting continent. It's coming out with a character guidebook, which is going to come out with 3 new ancestries. It's coming out with a Samsaren, which is like the Asian vampire, you know, the talisman on their face and they hop and everything like that.
Yeah.
The Varang, which are ghastly looking goblin creatures. And it's more than that, but I mean, bad appearance. And Tanuki. You can play a shape-shifting ancestry that is going to be able to change into more than just 2 shapes, like the Kitsune can, for instance. They're also releasing a world guidebook, which is going to be about the same level of quality as the Mwenge Expanse book, which is going to be really, really cool. That book was really sick. The book seems to have dragons as a part of it, so we might get some new dragons, some new creatures, some new lore. Super interesting. And then they're releasing a new adventure path. It's a 4-volume adventure path in the region, and it's Season of Ghosts. And it appears that every one of the books is going to be a new season. So a change of different environments, a change of different types of entities. There's probably going to be more spectral entities added to the game, which is going to be very interesting. It's going to make the spectral barbarian more interesting and really good for this path, I imagine. And all kinds of stuff. And yes, I'm aware that the Samsaren are not the same thing as Jiangxi. They're definitely different, but I'm visually speaking, they're very close to the same thing. And it's going to be there's going to be a lot. I would not be surprised if by the time the book actually comes out, this will all be releasing towards the end of this year and going into the beginning towards the beginning of next year. So we're going to be getting a lot of stuff at that time. A new world book, which is super interesting for those who are excited for expanding Galarian. And honestly, like, if it's of the same quality as the Mwanga Expanse book, it's going to be a really good book. There's going to be so much added to it. I like the Mwanga Expanse, for example, added more varieties of the standard ancestries, so we might expect to see that as well. And the cultures they had were very interesting. Cloud dragons really coming up, and they even added like divine dragon heritages for like kobolds and for sorcerers and everything like that. I have no doubt in my mind that Kitsune and Tengu are going to get some extra stuff from this book as well.
Oh, I'd be surprised if it wasn't.
And we might even get some new archetypes coming in the World Guide, because we got some new archetypes. Not super exciting ones, IMO, but some interesting ones. Also, some new gods will be coming out as well from
You need
that
more
region.
of those. The cleric godless is getting a little empty.
Yeah,
it's a little sparse.
I mean, to be fair, there's some that are really, really cool. One of my favorites from the Wang Expanse book was Byakko, because she's a really cool god about starting fires and everything like that. And she also had a really good weapon for her god, for her chosen. It was the long spear or something like that. So
I still posit that what's his face, the accidental god, is the coolest. The guy who did it while drunk, like ascended to godhood.
Oh, Caden Callion.
Yeah, Caden Callion is still the absolute best.
It's very exciting. I'm very excited to see what the new adventure path kind of brings out, and there's all kinds of stuff that are coming out. Kind of funny that I'm waiting to play Wulong tonight, so it sounds interesting. Still need to learn Galarian lore after transitioning from D&D. Yeah, go check out. There are a few good ones. Gloria of New Thassalon, you can find her on Twitter, and you can find her content on Deadly D8. Talks about a lot of that kind of stuff. It's always super interesting. And so I would definitely go check it out. People have asked me if I wanted to do some lore stuff. I, to be honest, am not super into Pathfinder's lore. I think it's good. I think it's a better fantasy lore than D&D has put together. I think the only problem is people think D&D's is better is because it has a lot more people who's written about it, and there's a lot more videos on it and everything. But if you actually look into like Pathfinder's lore, it's super interesting. Also, they include more than just one coastal region of a singular continent, so you know.
Yeah, it's more expansive. I'll say, like, I'm still not really well versed in either. I know more about Faerun and I don't really care and like it. I think the only cool part they ever had in Faerun's lore was the whole thing where resurrection was turned off. Because that is like a genuinely interesting thing to explore, of like, you live in a world where death can just be undone or worked around, and what happens when like that is gone. The idea of like immortals facing mortality is really interesting to me as like a story concept. And then that's it. And then I will say Galarian has so much more cool shit in it, but it's still like a fantasy world, and a fantasy world has to do some extra spicy shit for me to care.
Yeah.
So the whole part with like the Baba Yaga, that part is just absolutely 10 out of 10 lore.
The Baba Yaga is so great.
That part rules. Like, I don't care what anyone says.
I mean, the Automaton Empire,
that's pretty fun too.
Is really, really interesting and super cool to look into. Heck, the oh goodness, what is it called? Numeria and Starfall are super interesting. Numeria being kind of like this Conan-esque setting, and then you just drop into the middle of that ancient derelict starships, weird alien shenanigans, and androids, and an android god.
Yeah. Like the little bit of sci-fi elements I think are really interesting. It just makes me wish I liked Starfinder.
Yeah. Then you talk about the Sakara Scar and like Wrath of the Righteous's whole storyline and all that kind of stuff. Even it has really interesting elven lore, like in like different parts of the world. The elves have different interesting lore. Like there's oh goodness, what was that demon's name? There is like this section of just like demon infested woods of an old elvish like hold that a demon is currently like infesting and everything like that, which is really, really cool. And then
sick.
there's the ancient dragon god Dahak, and the Akuje elves who help seal them away and back during Starfall or Planetfall. Is it Planetfall? Something is the big cataclysmic event. I'm mixing a lot of names here.
Yeah. Honestly, I do think actually that's a decent point and probably where I'm at with like Faerun and Galarian lore. Like, yeah, honestly, I agree. I also could like I couldn't care less about like the overall lore of like a game like Pathfinder or D&D 5e because like that's not the point of the game. The game doesn't really feel like it's super built around you using a lot of the lore and making your own stories. At least not in the same way that like Vampire the Masquerade or like Lancer or like other tabletop games. It feels like you actually do need to know the lore and play true to the lore. Like 5e and Pathfinder, you can just slap the rules into kind of whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It's the biggest problem with a lot of tabletops in general. And to be fair, the inverse can be said. Sometimes the lore is so important that to make your game at all work, everyone needs like at least a loose rundown of the lore. Vampire is actually very like that. Anima Beyond Fantasy is also kind of like that because if your characters are going around using supernatural abilities all willy-nilly, that in the setting is super like dangerous to do.
The hardest part to initially get myself like to get out of the my other D&D experience was I had to remember that anima like setting, a lot of people just don't believe in the supernatural. Which is like it's like, oh, I'm in a fantasy world. Obviously everyone knows about like ghouls and ghosts and like demons and shit. It's like, no, they think it's made up. That was like a learning experience.
Yeah, in Faerun especially as well. Like technically they still say that people think that, which I don't have any idea how anyone could actually do that.
Literally how.
It's literally how, right? But people are like, oh yeah, no, dragons are a myth or whatever. And it's like, how can this literally, there's a town outside of Waterdeep that has been attacked by literally everything.
Yeah, if you spend a night in Baldur's Gate, you have like I'd say 1 in 5 chance of getting attacked by some form of cataclysm. So like, yeah, it's like the same deal with I think in those worlds of like, say to an extent of not believing in gods in a fantasy setting. Because in D&D I see a lot of it like, oh yeah, there's some people who don't believe that gods exist. No, they're legit. They are 100% provably real.
Walked the world.
They are provably real. Find a cleric.
Yeah.
Like, that kind of deal. But then the only fantasy thing I can think of that actually tackled that topic really interestingly was fucking Pillars of Eternity. You ever played that?
I have not played Pillars of Eternity.
Pillars of Eternity 2, there's a character who is very anti-religious because she is very admitted gods are real. But gods are very like negative forces a lot of times in people's lives. So there's a character of like it's changes of the head of like, I'm not an atheist. I just choose not to worship them because what have they ever done to like help us? They don't deserve my worship rather than they don't exist.
Yeah, and so and definitely, I'll half agree with you. Secret Worlds, kind of settings can be good or bad. I hate the go down the secret alley or jump into the Mirrorverse and there's the secret world. There's a layer of magic underneath everything. I hate that. I think it's dumb. I think it's a super like suspension of disbelief to think that such a thing couldn't like be revealed to everyone. And Anima Beyond Fantasy's setting, the point in which the game takes place is after many centuries of the supernatural literally being suppressed and like unable to act in any major sense. Whether it's like the Inquisition who's going out and slaughtering anything they can, or literally a device went off that put a lot of the more powerful supernatural entities like into a torpor like state. And so when you get into it, the world is wholly, mostly not inhabited by supernatural things. Your characters have to go to places that people don't go, and go or meet with individuals that people cannot like casually meet, to actually start seeing some of that supernatural stuff.
I would say it's supernatural in the sense that a lot of anime are, where it's just like, it's or Secret World in the method a lot of anime is, where it's like, yeah, it's Secret World, maybe that not every like Tom, Dick, and Harry has these magic powers, but every once in a while a cool pro tag will come along, and then like people are like, whoa, he's so powerful. Like it feels like that, because I mean anima's very anime inspired.
It is.
I mean, like, I will say too, there's a lot of stinker Secret Worlds. I completely agree. And then there's like the few cool ones. I think VTM is a really fun one because of how like goofy it gets, and which is really fun.
And
I think Dresden Files, from what I understand of the Dresden Files, is another really cool Secret World.
It's a really interesting one.
I need to read those books.
Even to some respect, VTM, I think it's a terrible Secret World, but in exchange, it has very deep lore and actual vampire culture and everything like that, or kin culture, as it were, is very interesting. The fact that it's all secret makes no sense, really, honestly.
In the games, honestly, when playing through Bloodlines, it feels like it's kept as more of an open secret. There's so many fucking people that are just like aware of vampire existence, but they've been ghouled. And it's like the kind of thing where every other person you meet is like, oh, hey, I'm a ghoul. What's up, vampire? And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it just seems really kind of lame.
I mean, honestly. It's also like, I think it's interesting. It answers the question of like, well, why don't the humans just gang up and get rid of them? It's like, oh, yeah, they just don't know they exist.
Well, they have before. It's happened several times in the vampire history. But it, again, like I said, it's a very bad Secret World setting. In exchange, it is very interesting because the actual lore behind the kin and everything. Like the fact that it's a Secret World thing is, you could remove that, and I think it would still be a good game.
Probably.
The Camarilla can still exist because vampires look outwardly human, and it's just keeping your particular like sex and areas, out of the common person's eye, in a sense. It's kind of like the same thing against like vampires versus hunters. Hunters know vampires exist. The only reason why the hunters don't wipe out certain sects of the Camarilla is because of the veil, the acts they do to keep everything hush hush. So it's like there are characters in the setting who know about it and are trying to actively kill the kin, and it doesn't diminish the setting at all.
Yeah. I guess it's fair. It serves more as a really cool setting of what if every single like spooky thing that bumps in the night was real, and how would it fit in that world, rather than like a really effective Secret World. So I think it does a really good job at making a lot of just supernatural entities like fit and feel natural inside of the world. Mm-hmm. Though also it is like a fucking smorgasbord, and adding literally everything is just causing like room for trouble. Because that just gets a little too much.
And Bruno Matos, I think, brought up a good point. Yeah, I do think Pathfinder 2e and D&D feel like fantasy superheroes. I think it's very much the case of there's just too many people in the world who are significant and powerful, and I mean, the games break down if you start removing that. Say you want to get endgame high-level magic items. It's either they're so damn impossible to find that even finding one is a super rarity, which means only certain members of your party will get access to these high-level magic items, or you have places like Waterdeep where you're just like, oh yeah, I'm an archmage, let me make you this item. It's going to cost you a lot of money though, and so like the setting just has to like be what it is to let the game function in a way that everyone enjoys. Not that the opposite can't be done. That's exactly what the other settings like Dragonlance or Dark Sun even are about. And like I think there's a lot of validity to playing that nitty gritty Your characters aren't superheroes. They're not like super well. Like remove proficiency bonuses or whatever to things, and just play as slightly better than normal NPCs characters and fight things. I think that's very legitimate. I think that's a very interesting and fun way to play. It's just, it's kind of hard to have your cake and eat it too in this situation. You need a setting that's very, very well orientated towards, there are people who are powerful, but they can't act for a variety of reasons. Anima Beyond Fantasy does this because there's the Inquisition, and they're all a bunch of religious nutcases most of the time, who will come and kill you.
One cool Inquisitor.
I mean, there's a handful.
I've met one cool Inquisitor.
That's how rare they are.
Yeah. The other Inquisitor I met, kind of a tool, not gonna lie.
I mean, to be fair, the one I made is also the only one, or has been the only one that you get to come across.
That's the only
more accurate.
It's the only cool Inquisitor. That guy rules.
But like, they just can't openly act, and in a world where there's one force that's allowed to have power and can hoard it and push their arms race above everyone else, it makes it so the Archmage characters who can bend reality are still afraid to come out and do stuff. And there's been many times in the world where they do come out and do stuff, and it's a huge thing, So it's you need a setting that's very much got checks and balances. And the problem with something like Galarian or Faerun, there's no checks and balances.
Yeah. Honestly, I think it's something that I'm seeing is disappearing time and time again. And yeah, apologies, I'm bringing this back to Warhammer, but the current split between Warhammer Fantasy and Age of Sigmar, because AOS is 100% like fantasy superheroes, everyone's super powerful, like all that. Fantasy is like a nitty-gritty fantasy world with all these awful elements in it, but it feels very natural. Like, everything has its like slot, and it fits in there, and it functions, and like the world like feels real. In like AOS, it kind of feels like there's just very like, it's isolated pockets of very powerful things. Because like, yeah, in fantasy there are very powerful fucking people like Felix and Gotrek, fucking Teclis, all these characters where you're like, they can do a lot. The thing that's like the limiting factor of the Warhammer Fantasy setting is there's not enough people, and the threats there are too much and too varied. So there's just like, yeah, let's say like Gotrek and Felix, two very powerful characters who go around doing a lot of very impressive things. They're not everywhere at once. They can deal with like a Beastman invasion, but then there's a chaos uprising in the city that's like across the continent that they can't go to. Like that at least is like that checks and balances. So everything feels like it naturally fits in a way, and it feels like that's kind of being lost a little bit as everything keeps kind of going to like the fantasy like the fantasy setting with that's more of a power fantasy, rather than like a living, breathing fantasy world.
I think that is an interesting conversation. It's a conversation we had before.
True.
And it's something that I think before you kind of had the opposite idea of, well, I want to play a game. I don't want it to be very hard. I don't want to deal with carry weight. I don't want to deal with all these things. I'm not saying carry weight is the same.
No, yeah, that is true. I think it's the thing that I'm split on, because I do believe that. I'm viewing this as a perspective of, it's probably not the right perspective to take for this since we're directly talking about like Galarian and Faerun. I was looking at it from more of a narrative perspective. From a narrative perspective, that's like kind of the thing. From a game perspective, if I'm sitting down and playing a like tabletop RPG, I don't want to deal with the realities of real life because that's not fun to me in a game. But like in a story-driven thing, like 100%, like it makes sense to have all that, and it's if there's narrative reason for it to exist.
I'll be right back.
Because I'm curious about the Warhammer Fantasy like tabletop setting, because I feel like it could be an absolute nightmare to play, but I've heard it's really fun. At least absolute nightmare of like, of just the realism that you have to do, the nitty gritty shit. now I'm left alone. This hasn't happened in so long. Hasn't happened for a while, chat. Well, now there's at least a visual indicator that there is a person in the stream still. And at least for this part, chat, this is the part where you agree with me. Like, just fill the chat with, like, based again, Glue Boy did another great one. Just, like, agree with me, so then when Cam comes back, he has to agree due to peer pressure. Because obviously he can't hear me right now. Virgil solo stream, yeah. Maybe one day I'll change my profile picture, but today is not that day. Perfect, perfect. Keep that up. Hello, welcome back. I cannot hear you.
I hit the mute button.
Nice.
I was saying I agree that everyone can agree with you. I think the point you said was true. That
you did
when
it,
you're
boys.
sitting down,
the plan succeeded.
No, you can't agree. Oh man, yeah, that's true. I can't disrupt the balance of the stream.
Yeah, true.
But it's it's actually a very it's a very interesting concept of what is difficulty in gaming, what does it add, and should it belong at all? And it's a question of whatever's right for you. Yeah. I enjoy hard games. I played Deadlands. That game's really hard for tabletop RPGs. Your characters can become strong, and if everyone becomes Hero, then it's a different kind of game altogether. Yeah. But if you play Hero Rules as written and how rare it is, yeah, it's a really hard game. I've enjoyed it, but I also enjoy even as the GM, I enjoyed running the anima games where you guys become demigods as far as like world power is concerned, and I don't see a problem with it either way. It's just my problem. The reason why I could get into anima was because it was interesting. The world had checks and balances, and the setting kind of drew me in and made sense. When it comes to like Galarian or Faerun, those check and balances don't really exist. Adventurers are a common thing. Like in anima, there's no such thing as adventurers.
Nah, you're just a bunch of homeless weirdos.
Well, most of the time they're not necessarily homeless. They're characters going on a journey, of some kind. Because even in the big one that we played, the Astrid campaign, which I don't actually have an actual name for that campaign.
That's what it is. Essentially,
it is. Yeah,
Astrid was the pro tag.
I mean, you guys technically had a home.
Technically,
you never went there because you had to go do world things. But
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just not a thing. In the other settings, adventurers are a thing. There's all these stories of all the adventurers. Did you hear that the adventurers slew the newborn god in the mountains and the peak of the world or whatever? And it's just like, oh man, who are these people? The setting's like,
yeah,
it was an adventure path, and we have to acknowledge that it happened.
Yeah, it was. That's actually something I was working on in my homebrew D&D campaign I was working on, where I was kind of handling it. At this point, it wasn't even inspired by Warhammer Fantasy. It was just like I haven't gotten into it at that point, because I think the checks and balance of like, oh, adventuring is a thing. There are adventurers and heroes in this world. What's stopping them from solving all the problems? Oh, there's just not enough. I think the idea that like it's such a limited thing, like a hard rule that there's only a certain number, like or percentage of people that are that powerful. Like I feel like that's a interesting thing to explore, because then you get to explore the hero that's fucking tired. You have like the level 28 adventurer that's like, I'm the one who has to deal with everything. I haven't had a normal night's rest in years. Like that type of exploration like opens up with that specific like response to the question.
And I guess And we kind of got super off topic, so
Super
I'll bring back around. I'm super excited for the new books that are coming out. Don't get me wrong in the slightest. The Qianxia book is, as Paizo does. It's not a bunch of white people making stereotypical Asian culture stuff. They had a very impressive line of Asian content creators to come in to add to it from a spectrum of individuals. And, Paizo coming out with bangers yet again, offering proper representation as much as that is possible. Because, okay, let me talk about this a little bit in a realer sense. An American-born individual who just happens to be Asian, I don't feel like is all that much more. It's like if I was like hired on to make stuff about Scandinavian lore, right? What the fuck do I know about Scandinavian lore? I've looked into mythology and everything for a lot of my life. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. I have literal family I go to visit in Norway. My sister got married and is living in Norway. I know nothing about Scandinavian culture any deeper than what any other American would probably know. Regardless, I still think it's great that people who, even if they're American born, can come on, talk about the things from their culture, and write from their experience who have ties to that culture and make the thing.
Because at the very least, if there's not like direct tie to it, there's like family ties like that you can directly pull from. Like, say maybe your parent is like native from like China or something, but you were born in America. But at least there's more than some random white person.
I've literally talked to my Scandinavian family, and even they don't know that much about a lot of the mythology and stuff like that, because...
That is also true. There's just people who don't fully know or care about their own culture. That does just happen.
It's not about their own culture. They just don't care about, like, maybe the fantasy or the lore elements. Or maybe
I guess that's more what I meant.
Research it, in any capacity sense. I have a relative by marriage. His name is Peter. And he's like a librarian, and he reads like all those kind of books, and he finds that very fascinating. He still doesn't know like all that. Like, I know more about some of the Pros Edis and everything than he does, So it's like, I think it's important to mention, yes, there are people of Asian descent who got to write in this, and I think the things that they add are the perspective of someone who enjoys this stuff and has ties to it, so they can take pride in making those characters, writing those narratives, and the like. Also, I'm sure that even if that was, if like, it wasn't necessarily like a bunch of Asian American individuals or whatever, they'd still do the proper amount of research. I think Paizo has enough respect for other cultures to not just release a bunch of super stereotypical stuff.
Yeah, so, they're very good about that.
I think it's going to be a really good book. It's going to be a very interesting look at these kind of different settings and everything. Like the Wang Expanse. The Wang Expanse book was so good. Shadows That Laugh, I'm so sad that campaign kind of ended early. It was a really fun game. Getting to talk to the Akuje elves, getting to make deals with the orcs. Oh goodness, what are they called? I can't remember, and it's the worst part because they were like one of the coolest parts of the setting too. The Matangi orcs are super cool, super fascinating lore wise. The Cloud Dragons, the Tuala dwarves, and another dwarf culture I can't remember at this moment. All super interesting and written by people who love these settings, like these ideas, and did the research, incorporated a lot of it. I expect the same level of quality coming out with the Qianxia books. the character guide, and the character guide's gonna be good. It's actually been a while since we've had a character guide, and the last the only other character guide that's come out was a banger. That was the book where we got Leshies, where we got the Kitsune, the Tengu. It introduced, I think, the Hell Knights and the Firebrands and the Knights of Lastwall.
Multiple great additions.
And there's just a lot coming out. And that's just the character guide, but that's not even talking about what ancestries. I'm sure some of the more core races or ancestries are going to get more heritages that are going to tie to the lands of Qianxia, which I'm very excited about because, like I said, the Tuala Dwarves or the Kuje Elves or the Matangi Orcs were really, really cool. I was very excited about that. The new ancestries that are coming out, I think, are going to be very interesting. Especially the Tanuki. I think the Tanuki are very interesting, especially because lore-wise, the Tanuki were monsters. 8 people alive, so they would suffer longer. Also, they flew around using their nutsack.
What's not to love? You know, the normal things. You know, I think the thing that I like about Pathfinder so much, despite me not like caring a lot about the lore, is at least I'm happy Pathfinder is doing something to give us fantasy subjects and settings that aren't just European fantasy and Tolkien fantasy again. I really like seeing all of these like very inspired cultures, but then it's like with a fantasy lens, monsters, magic, all that stuff, instead of just like European, like British again. It comes up so often, and it's tiring. It kind of gets boring. It's like, yeah, okay, we're gonna get the normal dragons, you know, the skeletons, the like all these like the chimeras, all but like, we've seen these. All right, then we get like the really interesting like Asian monsters. Like, oh shit, that's terrifying. Hell yeah. Or the one I like seeing explored a lot, which doesn't get hit that often. I like Slavic folklore in my fantasy because it's fucking terrifying and absolute nightmare fuel. Slavic vampires should 100% be a thing in fantasy worlds. They're terrifying.
I agree.
They're fucking spooky.
I think we really need to dive into a lot of like even Russian like Slavic history and some of the modern Russian like myths that have been coming out, like the stretch being, I can't remember, it doesn't translate super well in English, but there's these images of these long stick bug like creatures crawling over buildings and such like that.
It's fucking spooky.
Like modern myths and everything, super cool.
Yeah, I mean, if you want nightmare fuel, just look into Polish folklore. Jesus Christ. I mean, that's where a lot of, I think there's a lot of that like Slavic vampire style. Like, so there's a lot of Polish folklore for it too. That's freaky. I was looking again. That's another thing I looked into for my was researching heavily for my setting, because I had a region very inspired by that, where it was very very tied to ritualistically dealing with like undead monster threats. Where it's like, yeah, you can kill them, but now you have to go through the process of actually making them stay dead.
Yeah.
And
I'll say, as well, from a Scandinavian background, Scandinavian undead are so unlike any other European or Anglo-Saxon European style undead out there.
I don't know.
There's a lot of spooky spirits and ghosts that do some very interesting things. Also, some very silly things, like licking your butter and stealing your spoons.
Oh wait,
like
those I know those ones.
Yeah,
those ones are great.
But they have some very spooky like ghosts and spirits and undead that they're like not zombies. They are physical manifestations of death that the land has subsumed and then brought out to wreak wrath based on spirits that like command them to. And so it's like you're fighting an undead being, but it's more like a representation of the natural wrath of a particular region or area, mixed in with the fact that they're actually not real and they have some ghost-like properties or abilities, despite being mostly zombie-like.
Huh.
It's very crazy. And, you know, African culture, I think, also needs to have a lot of their mythologies brought over and everything as well. Something that was very sad that wasn't super brought out in the Wangi Expanse book overtly. There were some really cool monsters like the Mambalo, which is just like Nessie of the Amazon River, essentially. Not the Amazon River, but the like the Nile River.
Mm-hmm.
And oh god, the hippo with the fiery mane and everything like that. A super crazy powerful monster.
Yeah.
And some of their other mythological characters and everything like that as well. The hardest part about it though is African cultures are not as like together as other parts of the world. They're very separated by big expanses and different, like when you're looking at like African cultures, you're looking at hundreds of African cultures that can.
And then which one do you pick?
Range super wide. That same thing actually kind of happens in Chinese cultures as well. That's why you have like, it's why it's like you call a Vietnamese individual like Chinese, and it's kind of insulting because they're just two different things. There's Laotian, there's all kinds of stuff. So very similar in those regards. So it's hard to pick individual things. We'll see what actually comes out with the Xianxia book. All the individuals. Obviously, the Tanuki is very like Japanese inspired. The Samsaran is a lot more of like Southern Peninsula style of. It's like it's like Korea or Portugal or stuff like that. Very interesting. Like some even like Thais as well. The Varang, very, very interesting as an ancestry. It's kind of one of those ancestries. If you don't know what a Varang looks like, maybe I can pull up an image here. I haven't set up for this though. Let me see if I can pull this up. Oh, they changed some of the areas. Alright, recording, share screen. We'll do something. Oh, I like that one. Just, hide some of my personal stuff. But this is a Varang.
Oh. Oh shit, that's dope.
They're very interesting. I don't know a lot about the lore specifically. We have the Tanuki here. Belly drumming, all that fun stuff.
Hey.
He's wearing pants though, so very lore inaccurate.
Yeah, Paizo, we might have to fix that.
And then this is a Samsaran, which is not the same thing as the vampire. It just looks a lot like it.
I can see that at least a similarity to it.
But I'm expecting for there to be a lot more. Oh, the chat disappeared. Tragic. I guess the other chat scene didn't have How Will They Fly. Oh, what the? Oh, I just got a bunch of stuff from the YouTube side of things. Hold up 1 second. A million comments just loaded up for me out of nowhere. And then is not on screen for some reason. Okay. Oh, weird. No, my page just reloaded for some reason. Okay, nothing new has been added. Okay. Interesting. Hopefully, actually, let me do something. Okay, it works. When we went to the other scene, it unloaded itself for some reason. But yeah, so I'm very excited for the book. Everything we were talking about settings earlier is more just the being honest and I think transparent, right? I'm not going to sit here and pretend that this book is the most exciting book of this year to me, or even that exciting, honestly.
Rule books take the precedent for that.
Yeah, Rage of Elements, hype, super into that. The kineticist is gonna be really cool. I really love they're taking on the like Asian style, mostly Japan, but has other influences, of course, of the like their magic elements and how their magic system works, using like elements of wood, earth, metal, winds, fire, water. And I'm very interested in that kind of thing, and so I'm very excited to see it represented in tabletop like this. So I think Rage of Elements is going to be really, really cool. I also hope Rage of Elements adds a lot more for some of the other classes and maybe some cool archetypes as well. So, there's a lot coming out of that book that's very, very exciting. I'm going to be making a lot of videos on. I also have a lot of videos I need to be making about Treasure Vault. Just has been pushed back. So we'll get to that here soon. But when it comes to like world books like that, when it comes to the character guide might be something I really bring up on the channel though, because character guides are really good. And it is also kind of a rule book as well. So I'll be looking into that. The adventure path does look cool. I think it's really cool. Unfortunately, as a GM, I have the complete inability to run adventure paths, or at least I can't run them that well in comparison to my own stuff. Like my own homebrew games, S tier. When I try to run an adventure path, it's like a B. So
yeah, the exception is fucking Rune Lords, but like you've ran that multiple times.
Yeah, I have run that one enough times at this point. I've tried to. Still have not gone past Turtleback Mountain yet, which sucks. But hopefully one day. I could run it much better now than I could when I tried it last time for 2nd edition.
Oh yeah.
Because I now know the game, and I have a lot more experience. Ooh, a Wu Yen style wizard subtype. That would be sick. I would love something like that. Or even a like a scroll omyoji style, like Japanese scroll using talisman using wizard style. I think would be really cool as well. They confirmed a new Magus subclass.
Oh.
Ooh, yeah.
Goated book.
Wait, for Rage of Elements, you mean? Or character guide? If it's character guide, I'm super excited because a Asian themed Magus actually seems really, really cool. If it's Rage of Elements, I can get behind that, sure, of course. For the Xian book, oh fuck yeah, that sounds so good. Oh my goodness. But I'm hoping for a ninja racket for rogue and a samurai archetype. Yeah, agreed as well.
Samurai is something that they need to bring over anyways from 1E, right?
Mm-hmm. It was a full class before, so they'll probably
now would be the
across
time to
as
do
an
it.
archetype.
Oh yeah, most likely.
I really want to see like archetypes that are martial based that you can slap onto spellcasters to make good martial archetype spellcasters that aren't as good as normal martials, but at least are a little bit better than what we got currently.
Yeah. I love just new archetypes because they're all, even if they're not like great, they're usually just kind of fun additions. They
I
do
love new
more.
archetypes too.
They do more for the game than like being added than not.
They always cause me a lot of effort though, because when they come out, I'm like, gotta get the books, rapid typing and everything like that, just trying to get everything ready in time. I really enjoyed the artifact archetypes that came out with Treasure Vault. I think they're very interesting. It sucks that there was only 2. It's such an interesting concept not to expand on more, but I think it's very interesting.
Agreed.
Let's see. I'm playing Abomination Vaults. It's aeons better than any other dungeon crawl adventure I've played. I've heard lots of good things as a reason why Abomination Vaults got ported over to D&D 5e. So, I mean, it was a game that Paizo felt confident enough to be like, hey, D&D players, check out this cool adventure. We'll make the rules for you, but, you know, see that we make really good adventure paths over here on our side of the table. I kind of feel they got close with elemental class archetype. I mean, kind of, yeah. I think if you mix in elementalist with geomancer, you could get a really good feeling magic caster that has that same kind of feel to it. But I do feel like they just need something that's just a little orientated better in that direction. Samurai and ninja were alternate class, basically super modified versions of classes beyond just archetypes are normally. The one samurai was based on just a archetype in Pathfinder 2.0 though. The one Sam was based on is just a archetype in Pathfinder 2e though. Oh, I see. Was it Cavalier? I bet it was Cavalier. Gotta add them into the tier list for archetype law. Yeah. We got that tier list coming up next week, but Jelled Sorcerer won't be in it because it's not in A through F. So, y'all get punked. You'll have to wait a little longer for the Jelled Sorcerer to get put into the tier list. But I'm excited for that tier list, and I'm also dreading it because they're just a lot of effort to do tier list videos. And it doesn't matter what you put in a tier list video, everyone's going to hate what you do anyway. So it's a very ungratifying, but it gets views and interactions. So, you know, do my tier list business. And to be fair as well, I do like the idea of tier lists, and I think a progressive tier list as I'm going through the nearly 200 archetypes in the game currently. Yeah, I think currently we're going to pass 200 archetypes soon. Yeah. And I'm just on F. But I do think it's going to be interesting. To be fair, I think it'll be a G through I tier list because I don't think there's that many. There's a bunch of H's, but there's not many G's. So we'll see. We'll see what the next tier list is. But we're getting through it. We'll get through the alphabet, and we'll get to the ones that everyone wants eventually. Unfortunately, just a lot of people's favorite archetypes are, like, the last, 10 letters of the alphabet.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, can you do Shadowcaster? And I'm like, I'm on F, bro. I got a ways to go before I hit S, and if I do them out of order, it's going to be a nightmare to make everything, to keep track of everything.
I've seen it enough that I've also seen the people who who answer that question for others. Someone's like, when are you going to talk about this archetype? And so this is probably when they're going to get to the S. Probably when they get to that letter.
But to be fair, in my videos, I don't state I'm doing it in alphabetical order.
No.
So if it's the first video they watch, they don't know.
True.
The new Magus hybrid study that lets you leap weightlessly through the air with your cultivated magic before your sword strikes home from the blog post. Can we do sword surfing? Because that's a big thing in Chinese mythical stuff is they can fly on their swords or whatever.
That's hype.
That's kind of cool. I think that'd be really cool. Cultivation is very interesting. I'm excited. I'm excited for the book and what it can offer, or the books and what they can offer, especially the adventure path. I wish for a dedicated gadgeteer archetype for inventor. Yes. Give me an inventor who's doesn't have a super weapon, doesn't have super armor, doesn't have a companion. Let me just throw a variety of inventor like traps, doodads, gizmos that do a wide variety of things. Like alchemist, but more mechanical and almost a little bit more like utility based. Or not even utility, but it's just like, it's like you throw out a special trap that like wraps around an enemies and like lets you trip using your crafting rather than athletics. I think that'd be sick.
That'd be super sick.
But yeah, I don't know. Let me give the floor to you all for the last 30 some odd minutes that we're going to be here. What do you guys want to see in future Paizo books? What do you guys want to see in like future core books? Also, thanks John Day for the sub. Are there certain themes you want them to pursue? Do you dislike the Tianxian stuff? I mean, let's open it up. And Knights of Last Call is finishing a tier list for the archetypes. It's more than 20 hours of content. That's why I'm doing mine segmented. Because fuck that. To do 20 classes, it took me an hour and a half. To do 200 archetypes, I don't even want to think about it.
To be honest, that's kind of too many hours.
My diaphragm gets sore after 2 hours of recording. 20 hours is a lot. Mythic for Pathfinder 2E, I agree. I like mythic stuff. I think it's very interesting. It allows you to carry your adventures past level 20 to actually get the benefit. More than anything, Mythic allows you to actually get the benefits of what your characters get at level 20 for a longer period of time than the last chapter of a book, you know, or whatever. I agree. I basically made mine to do so, but I really just want a gadget innovation. Yeah, I agree. Gadget innovation would be really good. Let's see, Hector Vivas. I was expecting Tianxia. It was strange they didn't try to make an Asian-centric stuff for a while. Well, it is very strongly anchored in fantasy. Yeah, I mean, it just takes a lot of time. And I think the Wanging Expanse book was more important because it deals with Garand, which is literally the bottom half of the continent of Vistan and Garand here. And it's part of their core. I was actually expecting them to do Arcadia, because it was alluded to in Guns and Gears. But I'm very happy that Tianxian is coming out. A warrior mage archetype that is not Magus would be great. Yes. Give spellcasters or even marshals just something that you can start adding a little bit more of that like supernatural flair to it without necessarily being a full hybrid class like Magus.
Yeah, give me like an extra tool or something, but I don't want to go full caster. Like Magus, I like the idea of it, but it wasn't totally my play style, and like once I actually got down to it.
Yeah, I think Magus is very deceptive because people are like, "Oh, cool, Magus," but in actuality is Spell Strike Machine, or there are some other ways to play Magus as well, but Spell Strike Machine is the one that people lean towards and then get bored of because all you're doing is spell striking.
Though actually, Cam, I'm sorry, it's Magus.
It's actually Magus.
It's stupid. If anybody who corrects the pronunciation of Magus, you're lame as fuck. You're lame and you're annoying. Who fucking cares?
Also, it's called localization.
Yes, it's also like if you understand what a person says, does it entirely matter? I see it often in your like comments. I'm like, that Also, just mages sounds. I don't like how it sounds. It's got a bad mouthfeel. I don't like
it.
Magus.
Does. I agree. I like Magus personally.
Magus sounds better, but also, who cares? It's popped up so many times in your comments where I'm like,
it happens every time. Yeah. Oh, I accept Magus too. Magus. Magus, I think, just sounds better.
Sounds like a fucking like a cool mage thing. I get it. It's not the same word, mage, mog, but it's mog has like a better feel.
I might be wrong, but I feel like they brought Morning Expanse to pair with Age of Ashes. Not really, no. You do one chapter in the Morning Expanse, and it is completely unnecessary to pair Morning Expanse with it. I literally just think it came out because, I mean, they have a lot of info about Avicen and not that much about Garums. Also, kind of some history rewriting. Because, you know, Pathfinder First Edition was made over 10 years ago. It was a different time. There was a lot more slavery and weird stuff happening with the Garums at that time. So they kind of needed to make a new book to kind of wash a lot of that away and kind of cleanse their palettes a bit. And I think it was necessary. And I think they did really, really well. And made me very invested in looking into the region as a whole. Let's see, but don't you need to be the rightest of the rightest on the interweb?
Yeah, you need to be fully correct in every single thing, every way you pronounce it, every possible facet.
It creates this interesting dichotomy. It's just like, well, then if you want to be the rightest, right, then whenever you refer to Japan, it needs to be Nihon or Nippon specifically. But then every time you see people who do that, you're like, fucking, it's Japan.
Fucking loser. I mean, we're getting
you're taking it way too seriously.
We're
what
getting
the fuck?
Dangerously close to a JoJo reference here.
Oh no.
There's a character that rants very profusely about being annoyed that everyone pronounces it Venice and not Venezia.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that character's... I love that man. I love Ghiaccio. He's a beautiful boy. He just screams.
Inquisitor, yes! Make Inquisitor. I don't care if it's an archetype or whatever. Make Inquisitor. I loved Inquisitor. Make it a cleric fighter instead of a wizard fighter, but no spell strike, of course. Yes. Give me brands. Let me mark my foes and let them know who's boss. I love Inquisitor.
I love Inquisitor and Wrath of the Righteous. The moment I tried it, I had a great time, and I was like, Cam's right. Cam was correct. This class rules.
Hector, are you serious? You personally expect Paizo to begin hinting at Pathfinder 3E? No, not even close. We're a good 15 years from a 3E. You gotta be straight capping.
They're making too much money to switch now, at the very least.
It's not even that. There's just nothing wrong with the game. The reason why they moved from 1E to 2E in the first place was culturally speaking, there's a lot of troublesome elements in Pathfinder 1E. Mechanically speaking, gaming has just progressed and they just made a better combat system overall. And feet bloat. Oh my god, feet bloat. Yeah, holy shit. It was atrocious. They needed to, because honestly, Pathfinder 1E was just a game of pick your books, because there's too many stuffs to like sort through to do everything. The worst they have right now is archetypes in 2nd edition. And even then, the archetypes are also bite-sized and kind of like really easy to drop in and drop out, that they could have infinite amounts, and I don't think it'd be too much.
It's a lot better, because like Pathfinder has the really bad tendency to be seen as the like Excel spreadsheet game, because it to an extent kind of is. And the fact that just 2E is working to get around that and get away from that, because I would have played Pathfinder a lot earlier, but I had the misconception that like, oh yeah, Pathfinder and Pathfinder 2E, that's a really complicated game that takes forever.
And Pathfinder 2E is not that complicated. There's already videos on it, but there's been a lot of good proof and good arguments that Pathfinder 2E is easier than D&D. In just how you like logic your way through running the game as a GM and even as a player, Maybe not day 1, but day 5. It just becomes easier.
Yeah, exactly.
They aren't even hinting at Starfinder 2. They just announced Starfinder Unchained. Yeah, Starfinder Unchained means they're likely to keep Starfinder around for like another 5 or 10 years. Because Starfinder Unchained is just kind of like the Tasha's Cauldron, thing.
Mm-hmm.
Only like Pathfinder First Edition had Unchained, and then 2 came out 10 years later. So let's see. Una Seckler, I think that part of the reason Faerun has fallen out of style, probably just the bloat and like the setting and a lot of the stuff they need to rewrite. Probably true. Bruno Matos, Faerun is a salad of everything. There is no identity like Dark Sun, Planescape, or Eberron. I agree for the most part.
I agree.
Its setting is high fantasy, Tolkien-esque style.
If you know what fantasy is, you know what Faerun is.
It's kind of like isekai, right? You can tell the difference between a good isekai and a bad isekai by how much you get a feel for what the isekai is going for, like Mushoku Tensei. Heck, even like some of the MMO style isekais. They are very strong feeling in comparison to the tried and true, like, oh, I'm just someone who goes to another world, gets super powerful, and gets a harem. Like, boring. Faerun, boring. Just fantasy, everything thrown in. Let everyone have all the magic they want. I was there 3,000 years ago. Let's see. Unchained was the first hint of Pathfinder 2, and that took 6 years. Starfinder has just hit 6 years and is now getting Unchained books, so I'm expecting 2025 for a Pathfinder 2 Unchained, maybe. I don't think so. I don't think an Unchained for Pathfinder is going to come out for a while, because Unchained books, like, what their purpose is to be like, okay, we see all of the kind of like errors and such, or we see like some of the problems with the rules. Let's come out with a book that gives you a lot of alternative rule choices and options for how to run the game in a slightly more modern way. But, obviously continuing on, Pathfinder 2E is pretty brick solid. They would have to be coming out with new ways to kind of look at things. The only thing I can imagine is crafting, because I think crafting is still not in a great place, even after the advanced crafting that came out in Treasure Vault. I just don't think it answered a lot of the problems that people were having with Treasure Vault.
It would be funny if they're like, hey, here's Pathfinder 2 Unchained, and then it's just like another really good just rule book. It's like, here's a bunch of fun extra shit you can add. We just slapped the Unchained tag for fun. But I don't know what you'd like want to fix in Pathfinder. It seems all very rock solid.
Let's see.
Then they already hit a lot of the possible issues with the errata, which is like the rule clarifications.
Una Seckler is making the transition over from D&D to Pathfinder after the big whole OGL fiasco. Great, welcome. Glad you're enjoying it. Pathfinder 2 is a very solid game, and honestly, just brick solid. You're not going to find a more solid TTRPG, I think, out there right now. Is there a good isekai? Shut up, Devin.
I agree with Devin.
No, there's good isekai. Mushoku Tensei is so good.
I have no clue what that is.
Oh my god.
Dog, I only know One Piece now. I know nothing else.
Hector Vivas, I still think the cycles for editions will get shorter. Well, you know what? I can't say for sure. All I can say is that why older editions made transitions, why D&D has made so many transitions to new stuff, is because they were expounding on the game. Pathfinder 2E, I don't think can improve in literally any way right now, or at least not significantly enough to warrant an edition change in any reasonable sense. It's kind of like when you hit top-line technology, right? It's like it takes way more effort to start pushing that envelope, unlike in the 90s where technology was changing literally every year. So, I think Pathfinder 2 came out when enough of those changes were coming out. But we'll see. You know what? If you're right, I don't know. Maybe I'll give you some free swag. We got a giveaway coming up soon, actually, on the channel.
Ooh,
I gotta get rid of some of those giveaway stuff, and now I have enough money to do another giveaway. So we'll do another giveaway on the channel in the near future. Once our finances get a little bit more in order, and also this month is not a great month for me. I'm busy with some, family stuff that's very serious, and so I can't reasonably expect to get everything done. But do giveaway soon. Some t-shirts I want to give out, even though they're all like super extra large, so sorry about that, but you can at least have them as swag. I'll also be throwing in some books from Paizo as well, so we got some fun stuff coming out. Let's see. I'm actually shocked they never made a Starfighter 2E before. I think it does need an upgrade, especially after 2E, but it's just, I think they just want to foster that Starfinder community more, and they've been coming out with a lot of stuff for Starfinder recently as well. So I think Starfinder is still gonna be here for at least the remainder of the 2020s.
Possibly. Even though as much as I want I would love a Pathfinder 2 or a Starfinder 2e, because maybe I'd like Starfinder. I just really was not a fan of its rules when we played it.
Pathfinder doesn't need a new edition yet. I do think, trust me, I do think eventually Pathfinder will need a new edition. I think 100%. New ideas, new ways of innovating. I think as tabletop grows, it will come out. But I think right now Pathfinder 2E is already ahead of everyone else in tabletop, so there's no reason to go through a whole edition change again. 10 years is a really good time frame for cycling an edition, in my opinion anyways. I agree, mostly because you can only release so many books in a year anyway. So, in 10 years, they'll come out with 20 books. It's a lot of books. And then you get a very dense system, which can be a lot of fun. And then at that point, the system can just kind of carry itself. It doesn't need a bunch of new stuff because there's so much that no person in their right mind can get through it all in any reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, then you could just we can move on to 3E, explore different options, see what else can come out, and then if you really like the old edition, you can still keep playing it. Those books didn't cease to exist. Because that's the current predicament that my little community has found ourselves in, because we're on the precipice of possibly getting into Warhammer 10th edition, and there's some worries. Because it sounds like they're planning on removing some aspects of the game that might just destroy it competitively. And there's parts of the game that are welcome changes, but we will see. And there's a chance that a lot of my friends might just stick with 9th edition.
Yeah. So, I definitely think it's possible, but you know what? Let me make a maybe unpopular opinion. Why need new edition when you can just play other tabletop games? Yeah. I'm in no rush for a new edition of Pathfinder. I don't think it needs to be changed. And even if I did somewhat, give me reasons to go check out other tabletop games. For real. Because there's so many other really good tabletops out there. And I have a gut feeling. That in the next few years, another dark horse tabletop is going to come out that's going to really change how people who are in the hobby see tabletop, or at least is going to be another option that's going to be a very different style of tabletop.
Mm-hmm.
I think that tabletop in general is being pushed now more than it ever has before. And there's so many creative people who are working in the fields that it just takes one person to say, you know what, I want to make my own and have a bunch of really good ideas and make a really solid tabletop. I mean, there's already things like Vampire that's already super good that, we'll try here on the channel. We're playing Lancer currently on the channel, and I'm absolutely loving it. I definitely think there's going to be some more bangers that are coming out. So, give me reasons to check out other tabletop systems. The whole purpose of this channel is to eventually become a variety tabletop channel where we talk about all of tabletop, do all kinds of things, have all kinds of cool games, all kinds of cool events, all kinds of fun things in our Discord, and it's a place, it'll be the tabletop mecca. That's my goal for this channel. Pathfinder is a great game. It's my favorite game. We're going to talk about it, and we're going to do a lot of Pathfinder content, but I do hope one day that Pathfinder will no longer be the main aspect of the channel and will evolve into a much more variety style of tabletop channel. That probably won't happen for the next 5 years, but who knows? It is my goal to make tabletop just more in every aspect. Yeah. And I think pushing Pathfinder 2E is pushing in that goal anyway. So, you know, the more people play Pathfinder 2E, the more people realize that D&D is not as great as everyone thought it was. And the more competition that big companies will have to make for tabletop in general, which will hopefully push the scene into a different era. Kind of like how EA and a lot of those other companies have had to actually kind of step up with some of the games they're producing, because the garbage they were pumping out is just not competing with stuff on Steam anymore. So there's no shortage of good video games out there for people to look at, and so companies need to fight for your money more now than ever. Yeah, Bruno Matos. We'll try some 10 Candles at some point. There's so many. Play one adventure of Paranoia. I love Paranoia. I actually played the original Paranoia quite a bit. We'll do live plays, and we'll look into a wide variety of tabletop. When this channel gets to a point that, you know, I can start hiring editors, we start, you know, I'm going to keep investing my money that I'm getting. In fact, I recently just bought a green screen over here to do some green screen stuff. I have bought a new mic, a more maneuverable mic head, so I can position my mic a little bit better, because that's been kind of a struggle for me lately. We're going to keep expanding the channel. When the channel gets big enough where I can hire people, where we can start doing more stuff, hopefully this channel will be pumping out new games and stuff to look into all the time. That's my goal. That's what I would prefer. I want to run more than one tabletop in a week. And man, if I have to pay my friends to do it, I will. Damn it.
That'd be fun to be paid to do that.
Yeah, I bet. Let's see here. It can happen if you make it happen sooner than 5 years. Hey, man, Keenan, like, I'm pushing. I'm hustling literally every day. Like, I'm talking on Twitter my best I can. I'm bad at internet communication. I struggle to just be like, yo, what up? I'm doing an interesting tweet today. Like, it's not my nature. The only thing I ever...
do what I do and talk about your theory that Zach Baggins is trying to fuck a ghost on Ghost Adventures.
See, man, that's not weird like that. That's
not a weird thought. That's perfectly normal.
It's a weird thought that you put so much energy into.
Because it's true. Zach Baggins is trying to fuck a ghost.
See, I just don't have that chaotic energy. Whenever I'm like, I want to talk about something on Twitter, I'm like, oh, what am I interested in? My YouTube tabletop. Oh God, no. I'm married to my work. There's nothing for me to talk about.
I bet everyone here in chat knows exactly what I'm talking about when I say Zach Baggins trying to fuck a ghost on Ghost Adventures.
Hey, kind of really quick, how much was the initial investment in the channel hardware? I'm kind of on the fence of trying something in my own language. Absolutely. You know what? I don't think that there is enough South American, whether it's you know, like Portuguese or whether it's Spanish channels. In fact, if I get big enough one day, I'm gonna have another channel all dubbed in different languages, because I think that's absolutely necessary nowadays, and I think there's a lot more people out there who need tabletop. Initial investment, it really depends on your computer. That's the hard part. Because getting the software to edit, there's a lot of free software out there if you're willing to put the time to learn it. To have enough of like RAM or whatever or a good enough processor rather to like render your videos, also another big thing. Microphone, like 80 American, you can get a good, like this Blue Yeti that I'm using here is like $80 American. So the boom arm I'm using is like $20.
I'll also say that depending on what you actually need to do, if you also want a decent like lav mic at all, if that's more useful for your shooting, you can get a really high quality lav mic for $20. Surprisingly, like a really good entry level one. I don't know the exact brand name, but if you just look up an article on like the good ones, there should be one for $20 on Amazon, nice and dirt cheap. As well, like if you got an idea, just there's no harm in trying to do it. Just see what you can do to make it and see if it's effective. At the end of the day, too, like you can have all the hardware and all this, but if the content's not interesting, people won't come and see it. So it's also just about like sitting down and just coming up with something that's interesting and fun to watch.
Yeah, I will state, I think Spanish or Portuguese-based tabletop channels will do really well. There's a lot. I have a lot of people coming to my channel saying, "Hey, I'm, I speak, Spanish or I speak Portuguese. It's really hard to understand, but I really like your content. I speak some Spanish, but doing videos in Spanish would take me like 5 times as long because it's just not natural to me. And I used to be, my Spanish used to be a lot better, but then I moved to somewhere where they had no Spanish speaking individuals and I haven't used it in like 7 years. So,
Yeah.
I do think it would do really well. I think it's an idea worth pursuing, but it takes effort. What I've done here today, I live and breathe my job here. I talk about it all the time. I annoy all my friends and family. Oh, you're French, by the way. I mean, I would still say even then would be the right way to go about doing it. I think tabletop in general needs it. And I'm sure there's tons of people in Canada, certain sections of Canada that love a nice French channel for it as well. But my apologies. That was a wrong assumption on my part. I'll take responsibility for that. But it takes a lot of time, effort, thinking about your job 24/7, putting in a lot of effort and brain power towards it. Wait, what the heck? I played Warhammer 40k once before talking to my boss. I fired him. You fired your boss?
The proper treatment for 40k fans.
I'm missing a story here. Though I will hop back up here. I heard that new Alien RPG is great. Didn't play it yet. I think that would be interesting. I think that'd be like a one-shotter though,
I think so.
Like a nice survival horror thing. I think it could be really good.
I've also heard some good things about it. Though, like, not a lot of great things about it. I've heard, like, oh, that was good, and then, like, that's it. So I don't know how much staying power it has. So, yeah, I agree. Like, a one-shot for it's probably the best.
And I think that's tabletop in general. We actually been having a conversation lately about Lancer where the game itself doesn't really reward the role-playing aspects all too much. It's just you can have as much fun with it or you're not, but the game really is just a strategy mech game, which I think is fine. And if you took out the role-playing aspects, I'd still play Lancer because I think it's super sick. But we've had a lot of fun with the role-play elements of it. I think some of the stuff, especially if you check out episode 7, I believe, of Wands, was a really hilarious time. We had a lot of laughing. I think if I find the time, I'm gonna go back and clip that particular live stream of all the shenanigans that we were getting into, because that was a really good time.
You should. You need to cut out and just make a video on Space Robert Downey Jr.
Robert Downey Jr. Yeah, Robert Downey Jr. Or Space Robert Downey Jr. compilation.
For those interested, I just put a link to the Alien RPG.
Ooh, it has a masterpiece of a stress system. That's super interesting to me, actually.
It better have a fucking stress system if it's in the alien setting.
Right. But like doing a good stress system is really hard. So
Yeah.
if it has a really good one, you know, that might be something to go and start taking some juicy bits out of, because man, I definitely think stress needs to be implemented in tabletop more, because it forces role play. And it means that your characters are not just like, oh, give me enough healing potions and I can get over it. They have to actually deal with some stuff, even if it's not like directly physical.
Oh shit, you can do a Colonial Marines fucking thing with this. Hell yeah. Colonial Marines stuff's fun.
There's so many, man. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is the problem. There's too much. I'm only one man. I can only plan so much. Like, and not only that, but tabletop is inherently a group-based activity. So getting a group of individuals to do something with you without, you know, compensation is a lot harder. When I can pay my friends to work on the channel and to play tabletop with me, everything will get better. We'll have more content, more people can do some stuff, my friends will have more money, and I can just do all the tabletop stuff that I want. I can't wait. Oh god, it's just in the future. But, you know, we're pushing the channel. By June, we should hit 3K. By the end of this year, I want to hit over 5K, maybe even over 6K. And we'll hit 10K sometime next year. And if we carry the momentum, if you guys go out, tell people about the channel, put the you know, like the archetype videos or the class videos out there for people to see, it will help grow the channel so much more, and I'd appreciate it. But this is not a command. Do it if you like the content. That's all I ask. We have people in the Discord, which our Discord is so good, by the way. We have over 160 people in the Discord now, which is nuts. People are making games. We got memes, all kinds of great stuff. Like, we're growing so fast in so many areas. It blows me away. So this channel will grow. I'm planning on putting in a lot of the effort to do it. And who knows, maybe we'll get even better tabletop content out to y'all before too long, and we can have more games, more channels, better quality content. Because my god, I am a bad editor. I really suck at editing. The only thing I can do in the creative process is make the content, record, and make thumbnails. And, you know, everything's going to grow. More people are going to come. More people are going to be here in the... I mean, today was a really good day for our table talk.
That is a crazy day.
There will be a point in the future where we'll have hundreds, if not thousands of people in the chat talking tabletop.
That'd be really fun.
It'd be crazy.
God, managing that chat, that would be a time. I'd actually have to be like, I'd have to like be tabbed into the stream the whole time to monitor people.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we might actually have to get other mods.
Ugh. They can't do it as good as me.
Yeah, I mean, hey, don't get me wrong. Y'all take the Discord at your own pace. It's there as a communal space for y'all to operate and do things how you would, to chat as much as you would like, to post memes or whatever. Discords are often made of a variety of different peoples, and even if you're just a lurker, that's fine too. If you find some enjoyment looking at the conversations or whatever, that has done what the Discord is meant to do, which is create a space for you to kind of hang out or to pop by every once in a while and to see the things you want to see, you know. I'm bad about talking in the Discord, personally. I'm ridiculously busy, but even then, I just suck at talking to people online. That's why I tell everyone, right? like if you message me directly on Discord, I'll say like, hi, what's up, what's going on, but don't expect me to keep chatting with you. I have barely enough bandwidth to chat with my own friends. You want to chat with me? Come here to Table Talk or in the Discord. That's the place to meet me. That's the place to talk. I'm just really not good at chatting with people online, and it's a little bit more stressful to me than it should. But in a setting where I can physically talk to people, man, I was built for this. This is where I was made to be. So, streaming, you'll get me, you'll get my conversations. I'll read as much as the chat will allow. If it gets really fast, who knows? I try my best though, and obviously in the actual Discord, less stressful. It's a lot easier for me to hop in and be like, hey, yo, what's up? Did you check this thing out? Pretty cool. So
yeah, I do my best to chat in the actual Discord as well. At least when I hop in when like I can actually add something or make a joke, or be the expense of a joke. That's usually what I do for the Discord. It is a great time though. I really like a lot of our active users in there. They're really fun to just talk to. Y'all know who you are.
True. Length and others, you're the real ones. Dead Phoenix as well.
Both of you are like very active in both, and like it's very fun to see.
It is, and this is the thing too. Is like I'm happy we get to do this, and I'm glad that for many of you who've stuck around. Dead Phoenix, I know for a long time has been with the channel now. And, you're the people that even when we get big, I'll remember you because I won't be able to have a chance to remember anyone else because there'll be too many other people. But I'll remember you guys.
That's the part where it's been like the most fun seeing with like both this and even my own channel of like, there's the names where I'm like, I fucking know who you are. Like, it's when I got my 1K and there's one person in particular. It's like, I've been here since 42 subs. I'm like, yeah, I know you were. Like, you were very vocal in my first few videos. And like, yeah, 42 is like the number I had when I started. Like, it is wild how much you just remember those.
Keenan Casey, so you're saying voice Discord is better chatting method. You know what? Maybe in the future what we'll do, because first of all, I barely jump into chat with my own friends a lot of the times. So,
same. We usually do working on shit.
I have like 2-3 days a week maybe that I hop on to actually chat with my friends. Other times I'm working or stressing about work or managing my personal life, which has only gotten more and more complicated as time keeps going by. Nothing with me and my partner. Me and my fiance are still perfectly okay. Don't gotta worry about that. Don't need to make any assumptions on that end. We're still perfectly fine. Mostly her family and some other personal stuff, but yeah. Anyway, point of the conversation. But you know what I think I'll do is when we get in the future a little bit further and we have more people participating in the channel and everything like that, I might have a Patreon, and you can get, if you subscribe to the Patreon, you can get a specific Discord tag, and we'll do like a weekly chat in the Discord for our Patreon members.
That'd be a good idea.
We go in for like an hour or so and just chat with whoever comes by and just kind of participate that way. That's a good way to make a Patreon more worth it to some people, I think. And it's a little easier for me to just sit in a chat room and talk or text whoever stops by and give you all more an opportunity to actually like get a chance to talk face to face. So I think that's a really good Patreon goal to have, is get those personal chats in. So that might be a thing we'll be doing in the future when I feel like I can offer more things to a Patreon. I also actually, this brings up a good point as well. I do want to do more Discord events. This year has been nuts. I said at the beginning of the year I want to do more Discord stuff, and then literally OGL stuff came out and I just sucked my life away. Yeah. And then Treasure Vault, and then personal life stuff. So I've had no time to do anything with the Discord, unfortunately. Definitely in the future, I might have, you know what? We might even do like a weekly chat. I might even have like a monthly game that we do through the Discord as a Patreon thing as well, where, you know, I hop in, run a game for some people and do that kind of stuff. So these are some good like Patreon stuff for people who want to kind of get more out of the channel in the future. But right now I'm so busy, and even an hour chat extra in the week would be a little rough, I think. So, you know, a Patreon campaign, would be really cool. I think that's a really good idea for stuff to do with the channel. I do want to communicate and chat with you guys more. I really do. If it wasn't for my inherent social awkwardness and like not social awkwardness, internet awkwardness is the better way. I don't mind chatting with people. I really don't. But when it comes to typing, I just like my brain just doesn't socialize online very well. I don't get that connection, that feeling I'm talking to someone. And my ADD is just like, it's really hard to get that feeling I'm actually in a conversation when I'm just chatting with someone through messages. So, you know, but I do want to do more, maybe even some like Discord nights where we just like open Discord nights where we go and we do like Jackbox kind of stuff. I think it'd be kind of cool. The channel is getting big enough now. We're getting a lot of people who would, you know, Bruno, you know, we can make things work, you know. I am really good at handling all kinds of people. I was at Adventures League, and there's people who speak English who still struggle to communicate properly. So, you know, I think we'll be fine.
Whatever we do, it'd be a thing that we do for fun, and it's like a no stress kind of thing.
Yeah.
Something enjoyable for the community.
Obviously, anything I do will be done with the respect of its community, and it's also kind of like an open event. So for all the different kinds of players, you just can't take it super seriously. You just gotta kind of come in to have fun, and that's it. So
yeah.
But that is gonna be it for this chat today. Thank you all so much. It's a banger of a table talk, honestly. We had so many of you come in the YouTube side of things. Usually it's mostly Twitch side, but this was a super heavy YouTube side of things, which is an interesting twist to everything. So, you know, we had nearly 20 viewers for most of the stream. Really good. And we got some more fun stuff. I have my tier list coming out next week for the E and F archetypes that we've done here on the channel. I have a video coming out tomorrow for defenders for Lancer. I have some tier lists or top fives for items. I'm going to be doing a lot of item based videos for the next couple months on the channel. So if you are struggling to buy gear in Pathfinder, check it out, because I'm gonna be doing some gear guides. I'm gonna be doing like what you should buy, what you should buy. That's actually a really good series title.
Yeah, true. That is a good one.
Thanks, Hector, for being here. Sorry to keep you up later than necessary, but I'm glad you're here. It really means a lot. Yeah, thanks y'all for the chat. You're all wonderful. I can't wait to talk with you guys again next week. And I don't know, we'll see what else comes out. Anything from you, Mr. Glue Boy, before we end for today?
Yeah, go check out my YouTube if you want to hear about 40K. New videos out. I also finally got access to channel memberships, and I'm playing around with those tools, and I like the things YouTube is giving me. It gives me a lot of fun little things to do more bits with my community, which is fun. And yeah, if you like Space Marines, swing on by. And I got another extra interesting video coming out Monday, a bit more of a strange one in response to it's a topic that hasn't been covered the best on YouTube, so I'm hoping to fix that problem.
Just in time for Critical Role. Hey, that's why we scheduled right before Critical Role, so y'all can go right into it.
We did do that.
But yeah, that's gonna be it for us. Thank y'all so much for watching. Good luck with your games. Leave the bad luck to me. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye. I don't know why. My friends don't like it when I don't say goodbye last.
It's weird.